thinking about whether Grand Bahama is at a crossroads or at an inflection point, whether opportunity is something we wait for or something we intentionally position ourselves to capture, wondering what the unfinished economic promise of majority rule truly requires, what private sector leadership must look like if we are serious about building the new built environment, sun, sand, sea, people, and digital. Tonight, we're going to not revisit history. We are going to examine execution. Something to think about.
Something to think about with Dale Happy Knowles. What we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. What we imagine, we surely can achieve. Let's change the narrative 242.
Welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. Hello, can you all hear me? Why am I coming back with just you? Bam, bam, bam. Too many buttons, man. Too many buttons. Hit the wrong button. Anyway, welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. And we're here today. We're going to have this lovely conversation. We want to welcome you all around the world. Let us know what's going to be happening with you. Tell us what you want us to talk about in relation to our subject. And we'll endeavor to answer the call. And this evening we have with me the one and only, my brother them. You know, his name is Mr. Dillon Knowles. They name him before they name me. But, you know, I ain't got no hair on my head, so that means I have all the, you know what. So, anyhow, we leave that for now. But welcome. So, Dillon, how are you?
I'm great, man. And yourself?
I'm great, man. I'm great. I could use the bathroom by myself, walk and talk, so that means I'm straight. You know, plenty of people in the hospital can't do these things.
Lots of people don't understand and appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So tonight we are joined by this man in front of you, who understands Grand Bahama from the inside out. Every nook and cranny of this place, I know he know. Because how I know? Because when he first went over there, he used to take us to all these places. Over 4 decades across international manufacturing, land development, regulation, the economic leadership have given him a 360-degree view of the island structure and its opportunities. A man who has weathered hurricanes from the belly in the shoreline of the hurricane center, taking charge of what's going on. A businessman who has reinvented himself time and time again, from prepaid entrepreneurship, farming, soul advocate, and respected consultant, and, you know, a number of other things, including trying to play golf. But you know, we ain't not going to sidetrack too much on that. But no stone unturned. He has been seeing the cycles. He understands the structure, and he knows the stakes. He currently serves as president, my Lord, president of the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce, something I thought he would never do. But the people hoodwink him, got him, grab him, and they ain't gonna let him go. He get the bug. They can put it on him, and I can help them do that. So Dillon F. Knowles, as your consultancy is called, if I remember right.
Yep, that's correct. Dillon F. Knowles Consulting Limited.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. And as we talk, we have to pause for 1 second to give honor where honor is due. Because my good friend, classmate, and our guest on show number 66, I think it is, 66, 67, somewhere around there. He got a big honor this week. And let me put him up on the screen so you can see him. His name is Ronnie Butler. You know, the son of the big Ronnie Butler. Where
the legend.
The legend, yeah, legend is right, with a big L. Bam, bam, bam. So he have this Audi Award. You know, he does voiceovers and acting and stuff like that. And they honored him for, I guess, the voiceover for the book that Baldwin wrote. Oh, they wrote on Baldwin. Well, he might have written it himself too before he would have you. So we give Ronnie all the praise. The class sends you our love, Ronnie. Wherever you are in the world, because we know you be all over the place sometimes. And the digital world could take you anywhere you want to go. Cool. So, not the wrong button. That's the one I want to go to. So something to think about. Thought of this when we wanted to interview you, Sir Dillon. Inflection points don't reward nostalgia. They reward intention. And for our guests, not our guests, what you call them? Our audience, they are guests too. You know, we will give you the 6-course meals if you were in the place with us, and fine china and crystal.
Let's get to, I like the dessert. Let's get to the dessert part.
I like the dessert, yeah.
Yeah.
So the questions for the audience to contemplate and answer in the chat, and we'll draw questions from that too. If Grand Bahama is at an inflection point, what must be intentionally repositioned? Policy, capital, mindset, or leadership? And what actions are we prepared to take, meaning you, now that we were unwilling to do before? So those are two questions we put to you. And so for you, Sir Dillon, we put the first one to you is majority rule delivered political agency but left economic agency unfinished. Is the people and the private sector the agents needed to finish that work?
So, you know, I think I know this isn't nostalgia, so I'm not going to do nostalgia. But you're famous for saying that the Bahamas is underpopulated.
Yeah.
And there is no better example of that than Grand Bahama. We have a city built for 300,000 people, and we have 40,000 people, maybe 50 on a good day. You know, economies are built around people. If you don't have critical mass, you struggle to keep an economy going and to have it be productive for everybody in the economy. There's too little numbers to spread the overhead of the region or jurisdiction over, and therefore we all struggle with high costs in every sphere that we look at. So I agree wholeheartedly with you in the past and now that the Bahamas in general, but Grand Bahama particularly, needs more people, and not 20 years from now when we birth another generation and bring them to being, but we need them now. And we as a country struggle with this concept of bringing people into the country. We believe that it is important for what we say, the Bahamas to be for Bahamians. And even if that means that we keep the Bahamas small and unproductive, we prefer that mindset. And we have to figure out how to get beyond that mindset to a mindset of inclusion so that we don't operate from a 4-slice pizza, but we operate from 100-slice pizza where there's more to go around and there are people to go around.
Right. And a lot of that is to do with what we say about the new built environment, which we can get onto later, because the economy of the Bahamas can be real over $100 billion right now. And from some of the other conversations I've been having, recent and over the last 2 years, um, some economists and the like is telling me we could get up to $1 trillion if we was to be focused and intentional on what we want to do. So looking at
Absolutely.
that picture, are we mistakenly familiar with our stability or our comfort, the level that we think we're stable because we're not like Far East or other places that have all kind of problems in Grand Bahama. Even when that familiarity is underperformance, and you just touched on it somewhat. So if you could probably elaborate on that.
We are severely underperforming. I give you an example. We did the Grand Bahama shipyard just acquired two massive dry docks. One of them, which hasn't arrived yet but is on its way, is the largest dry dock in the world. And those two dry docks theoretically generate an ecosystem around them that would put everybody in Grand Bahama to work if we were focused on how to support them properly. Unfortunately, we don't have enough resources, indigenous resources, Bahamian resources, with the qualifications to fill all of the in-house opportunities that exist there, much less the outside support services that are needed to keep those two dry docks busy. And so we have to figure out as a nation, where do we go with this? This Grand Bahama is not New Providence. New Providence has been and continues to be focused on tourism and financial services.
Right.
We have a plethora of people qualified in those industries. But in the industries that Grand Bahama engages in, we have not done a good enough job of training individuals to be able to take on the roles that we have. And even if we trained everybody here, we wouldn't have enough. So we have to look at what is it going to take to be able to have a large enough population to be able to support the kinds of enterprises that we are enticing to come to Grand Bahama. And Grand Bahama is not going to compete with New Providence for tourism or financial services. That's not our niche.
Right.
And so we need collectively at the local level and also at the national level to come to grips with the fact that if we support these entities the way they need to be supported, they will grow. And if they grow, everybody will get a piece of the pie, and not just as employees, but as contract companies, supplier companies, and all the other spin-offs that come along with them. You find companies like shipyards and what have you in the US and elsewhere, where they become the center of an entire town. An entire town is built around them. But we tend to, I guess the PM said it best the other day at Business Outlook when asked the question, what are we going to do to jump from 40,000 to 300,000 residents? And he said there's no ready answer for that in his mind because the Bahamian people are xenophobic. I found that interesting that he would actually say that. We know that, but as the leader of the country, we need to be doing what we need to do to change that. Otherwise, we're not going to get there, and we will continue to underperform.
Well, I know he always said that there's a lot of work that we have to do, and part of the work that, at least that I know about, that he says is the fact of we have to change this mentality that we have. And I guess he's touching on some of the things that he acknowledged as challenges. But, you know, he can speak widely for himself, and I think you said that he might be speaking tonight. So we could watch that on YouTube afterwards. So, but when we look at that, the other part to that is that I think every island in the Bahamas have its own unique character, and we tend to want to copy cookie cutter New Providence or Grand Bahama across all the other islands and so forth. So we want to change that mindset also.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of it is if you do a SWOT analysis of each island, it would be totally different. Abaco has built itself around pleasure cruising. It has repeat customers who in the midst of storms and what have you, are already packing their boats with supplies to take to Abaco, waiting for the storm to break. That's the nature of their economy. We don't have that in Grand Bahama. Maybe you have some of it in Exuma, but not to the extent of Abaco. Exuma is big on Airbnbs, and you don't have that in Grand Bahama. You don't really have that in New Providence. So each island is totally different, and we need to be able to approach each island differently if we're going to be able to maximize the economic benefits of the resources that we have.
Yeah. And so if we focus on Grand Bahama for a bit right now, we consider Grand Bahama as an inflection point. It's been going down with all the hurricanes, not because of the people or anything specifically, but it's a lot of things that was causing the economy to drop, right? And so those players and those distractors, etc., we're going to leave them to where they are, but we're going to try to figure out how we're going to get from this inflection point up to an accelerated state, up to on top of the apex where we want to be again, where you could have the magic city all over again in its form that we would wish it to be, not necessarily with some of the baggage that came with the last one. So what decisive move must the private sector take now to lock down this upward momentum? Because you many hats, but you represent also the Chamber of Commerce. And I think you all should know what the people.
There's two levels to that. We are very good in this country about incremental change and incremental progress. That serves itself well in a New Providence, but that isn't what is needed in Grand Bahama. Grand Bahama needs a massive influx of productive people who have the ability to spend money, whether they are foreign direct investors, whether they are digital nomads, whether they are here filling vacancies that we don't have the ability to fill ourselves. We need to be focusing on how we tap into the global economy for Grand Bahama, how we tap into the global capital, and how we encourage global residents to relocate to Grand Bahama. That's important. The specifics of what they do is less important today than what they are capable of bringing. We obviously don't want to attract people who are coming here to look for work. We want people who are coming here to bring work. And we have a huge opportunity for that because Freeport is built and has the infrastructure to handle another 250,000 people without anybody needing to do anything significant. If you try to put another 10,000 people in New Providence, you need to spend a lot of money to be able to build the infrastructure to be able to support that. It's a totally different perspective. So while it is okay to talk about incremental change elsewhere in the country, in Grand Bahama, we have a totally different fabric and we need monumental change. So yes, the indigenous investor population needs to engage in things that support the economy today, that support the public, the residents today, that supports the businesses that exist today. But we also need major investments that are going to significantly grow the pie. That may sound a little nebulous to your audience, but the reality of it is Grand Bahama lives in a global village. We don't have 200-year history. We have a 70-year history, and that history was created, deliberately created, and we need to deliberately create more history.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And so if you have the capacity and you have the investors, you already have the port scenario in terms of it to incent enterprise, and particularly transshipment or transportation, whether it's for product or the ships coming through, the oil coming through, all those different things. At one point in time, when I was at Badelco, our biggest money maker was the tourists using roaming and all those services that was for other places. And so I always used to tell people that in my view, there's no business in the Bahamas that is successful that does not leverage the volume of people that either pass through digitally or physically, right? Mom and pop shops is because there's absolute need for those for survival. Those are the mom and pop shops that survive and make the most. Or small businesses, because if they don't like the word mom and pop shop, that may be a little bit offensive to some people. But at least that's what my grandmother used to call it, mom and pop shop.
Yep, that's what they are. They're run by moms and pops.
Cool.
So, when you talk about people coming through, we tend to like to count tourist numbers. My calculations are based on the statistics that I've seen, that it takes 3 million tourists to have the same economic spend in country as 300,000 people.
300,000
So
citizens.
300,000 residents, yeah,
Right.
residents. So you have to have 300 million a year that you entice to come to the country, to the island, to offset or exceed what 300,000 permanent residents would spend. And you don't have to chase behind them every year. They're here.
Right. Yeah.
They're doing their thing year in and year out. So we don't want to be in the business of chasing behind tourists. Yes, we have great opportunities for a tourism product, but that's something that we need to be doing in addition to the global enterprises like logistics.
Right.
Both people and cargo logistics. Imagine Grand Bahama International being a logistics hub where people from North America and South America are passing through Grand Bahama in order to gain direct entry to the cities that they want to go into in the United States without having to go to Miami to clear customs and immigration. Imagine that same thing for cargo. These are opportunities. These are big opportunities that need not us to be investing, $20, $30, $40, $50, $100,000, but investing millions and billions of dollars. And so there's lots of money out there in the world. There's lots of money floating around looking for places to make money. And we have that place. We just need to figure out, we need to be intentional about getting it.
And folks, touched on the first national resource that we talked about for tonight, which is our geopolitical location, where everything has to pass through us to get from one side of the world to the next side of the world. At least that's my interpretation of geography, right? You might say it a little different. And
Yeah, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. God gave us a position on the earth that is, Singapore has a similar position in the East, and you see what they've done with theirs, and with their free trade zone. It's important you have to have a free trade zone for those kinds of businesses to be able to flourish.
Right.
Otherwise, they get caught up in red tape, and logistics is a just-in-time business. Things have to flow clockwork-wise. It can't be waiting on customs approval. It can't be waiting on clearance for ships to come in and people to come in. It has to be able to move. And so you have to have the necessary regulatory regime to allow those kinds of things to happen at warp speed.
Right, and that's, if I use the Golden State Warriors scenario, the way they pass the ball around before they shoot, that's the kind of mechanism that we need for what you just described.
Yeah, you can't stand up dribbling.
Right. So what uncomfortable truth does the Grand Bahama private sector and people need to own up to in their roles to cause the acceleration stage to be the norm? Because, we have these things where we like to do things to cause a bump and cause things to move, and then all of a sudden we get comfortable and sit back on our heels and our butt, and then things fall apart. We don't sustain it. So what's your comment to this question?
So I think that Grand Bahama residents as a whole, and business persons specifically, have been conditioned by 70 years of having a port authority do everything for them, to expect people to do everything for them. And if it's not the port authority, then it's the government. I have been in Abaco where the people have told me, if a boat run into the dock at the harbor and damage the dock, they don't call Nassau to ask Nassau when they come in to fix the dock. They fix the dock and send Nassau the bill. And if they pay it, they pay it. If they don't pay it, they don't pay it. But in their minds, their economy can't be let to suffer because the dock is damaged. Well, in Grand Bahama, we have a totally different mindset, unfortunately, which is we can sit down and wait for somebody to come fix the dock. So we have to continue to work on moving people out of that dependency mindset into a mindset, a can-do mindset, a proactive mindset, a mindset where we take responsibility for our own economy, not just wait around for the economy to get better so we could then start to make some money ourselves by feeding into that economy. We have to become individuals that think outside the box and think about how we're going to create the kind of economy that we want. An economy basically boils down to two real significant fractions. One is an economy that is dependent on foreign sales. It's that economy is what brings money to the island or to the country. And then there's the domestic economy that depends on local sales. And the domestic economy only exists if there's a foreign economy. There is no money to circulate if you don't make it. Because by the time as you finish buying all the imports that you need to live, there's no money left to do with anything else. So you got to continue to make foreign currency in order to create a domestic economy. And we're not thinking about that. Focus is always, when is somebody else going to do that? We sit here, we talk about, when is the government going to sell the Grand Lucayan? When is the government going to do the airport? When is the Port Authority going to build a cruise port? and all these kinds of things. But all of them are small potatoes compared to what Grand Bahama ought to be. They're pimples on the backside of an elephant. We have much greater potential than that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good to know because, I mean, when I look at what you started out by talking about Abaco and Grand Bahama in comparison, Abaco is pretty much would be, the economy would be driven by persons who are mature in business. And Grand Bahama, I would say not, right? Because you had a friend when he graduated from high school, he wanted a sports car, and you was telling me that all your friends in his bracket, their parents bought them Boston Whalers, and so they went to work, and they went to figure out how to make money from the whole time they was in high school, and they could work for their parents' companies, etc. So, they learned all of that. That was ingrained in them. And we, on the other end, we wanted to be superstars. I wanted to go to the majors, and we didn't focus on the things that their parents were focusing on. And so I see Abaco as a collective of people like your friend who put everything together, and so they know how to make money and they know how to work together and they don't wait, as you mentioned, whereas we still trying to learn what it means to have means when we do have means.
Yeah, I mean they are very entrepreneurial inclined. They are raised that way, and the rest of us are raised to go and get educated and come back and work for somebody. And that's a hard nut to crack, because when people are accustomed to having that steady paycheck coming in and they could live the good life off of that paycheck, they aren't thinking about the future. They aren't thinking about taking the risk of investing that money. They aren't thinking that money is ever going to run out. And so they're dependent on somebody always investing that will allow them to have a job. And we have to break out of that. Even if tomorrow, if we had another 250,000 people on Grand Bahama tomorrow, we still would have to overcome the perspective, the perspective that they just want a job. They won't see 250,000 people as a huge opportunity. I mean, Nassau probably has 300,000 people. Nobody in Nassau is sitting down, twiddling their toes and thumbs. They're busy trying to figure out what they could sell to somebody, because there's plenty of people to sell to. You could find almost anything in Nassau because there's not enough people wanting to buy it to make it profitable.
Yeah, and just me walking from Frederick Street to Charlotte Street for lunch most of the times, I get bombarded with by at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 people trying to sell me with different things, right? And I'm not talking about the tourist sellers, right? Who
I know.
sell things to tourists, but so I understand what you're saying. The competition is higher, and so people will struggle faster or hustle faster.
Yeah, hustle more. Yeah,
hustle more. Yeah. Cool. All right. So where am I with my questions? That was that one.
So that's the uncomfortable truth that Grand Bahama business persons and persons at large need to deal with. They need to get out of their comfort zone of waiting for somebody. We are expert complainers. Okay, we know all the problems, and sometimes we know all the solutions, but we don't know anything about the actions needed to make it happen.
Yeah, so I guess
and we got to fix that.
Right now, with the silly season starting to pick up, then everybody can start looking for their hand out with that.
Well, that's a whole nother story.
So, are Bahamian businesses truly risk adverse, or are we undercapitalized, under-networked, unwilling to collaborate and all those kind of things?
So capital obviously is a challenge that should not exist. There's too much money in the world for there to be a lack of access to capital. And it's one of the things that we need to deal with at a national level, is how do we garner access to capital? How do we resolve the lack of ease of access to capital? The banks have a liquidity problem, but the entrepreneurs can't get the money. We have to fix that problem. We have to want to fix that problem. And I don't see where we're focusing on that. Yes, we have created some government institutions that hand out some small money, but
Right.
nothing that is going to be a game changer for anybody in particular. And we can't talk about owning the economy if we can't do big things.
Right.
So capital is definitely a challenge, but we don't even think at that level. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was, I don't remember who it was, but I think it might have been Buffett said, don't borrow $3 million, borrow $300 million, because if you borrow $3 million, the bank could write you off. But if you borrow $300 million, the bank have to work with you forever because they can't afford to foreclose on $300 million. And we as Bahamians will never think about borrowing $300 million. We will never think about what we could do investment-wise, development-wise, if we had $300 million. But $300 million is really a drop in the bucket for most entities out there in the global space. It might be a big number for Bahamians, but people in the rest of the world spend $300 million at a drop of a hat. And will invest $300 million at a drop of a hat. We need to be in a position where we could access that kind of money.
Right. And I think it was Dan Knowles who used to say, always owe the bank. Right. So
Yeah. Well, you never pay for income generating things with your own money. The bank could pay for that for you, and then let that pay the bank back. Use your money for down payments and stuff like that. But we also have to get beyond happy. We also have to get beyond this idea that we are consumers and start to look at ourselves as investors. We don't have a shortage of money in the country.
Right.
We're just spending it rather than investing it.
And we spend it because we have too many things on. The TV on, this on, these things that perpetually bombarding you with these images to tell us that we're supposed to look like this, or we're supposed to get this, or we're supposed to think like this. And the minute you start cutting those things off and start paying attention to some of these other worthy men and women, in terms of what they teach, then we can learn some of these things, right, that you're talking about right now.
Absolutely, and we have to get beyond our belief that we exist to be comfortable. Comfort is a product of being successful, not a product of borrowing money to have the latest XYZ. Thank God we don't live in the US where they have credit for everything, because nobody in the US owns anything. We in the Bahamas, we buy everything with cash because we don't have access to the credit. But we have to get beyond the point where we believe that our first paycheck is supposed to go to buy clothes and our second paycheck is supposed to buy a car. Neither one of them can help you to eat next week.
Right. And even in the States that you're talking about that they don't, even though they prepare to own it, they put their companies and stuff in
LLCs.
LLCs, right, and so forth. And so, like you said, they're just leveraging the residual monies that's coming out of those things for them to live. But nobody could go and touch those things and so forth. So, Bahamian, and so before we leave that one then, so
the question is, are we risk adverse? Yes, we are. Generally speaking, we are risk adverse. We want the surety of a paycheck.
mm-hmm.
We're not prepared, generally speaking, to take the risk of investing or starting a business. I believe the statistics are that 95% of the population are employees, only 5% of the population are businessmen.
And what's the normal percentage? When I say normal, I mean for people in our region.
I probably somewhere around the same kind of numbers. The U.S. is probably maybe 10% of business owners. So we're not.
Okay.
It's not a matter of how far off we are compared to others. It's a matter of how far off we are compared to what we could be.
No, I understand that.
yeah.
Because I always say I don't compare myself to nobody, nowhere. I always compare myself to my potential and capacity.
Absolutely.
Whether I am achieving it or not.
Yeah. I mean, the mere fact that a Carnival Cruise Lines or Royal Caribbean could decide that they need a private destination on the mainland, both here in Grand Bahama and on Paradise Island, essentially the mainland, it's a bridgery. Right. And they could invest that money, and we didn't decide to do that. I mean, why? Why didn't we decide to do that?
A number of reasons, because in that particular scenario, there were Bahamians who wanted to do something similar, but yeah. So what would it look like for Bahamians capital to lead first, rather than follow external signals?
So that again depends upon which market you are aiming for. If you're aiming to be in the international market, where you're selling foreign, whether they come here to get it or whether you're shipping it to them, to me that's still selling foreign. And generally speaking, those markets need access to that market, so they need some form of collaboration with people outside the country. The domestic market, in my opinion, should be exclusive to Bahamians. There should be no foreigner in the domestic market. There should be no reason for that. If the money is already here, if the market is already here, we should be benefiting from that market. And we should be taking full advantage of that market ourselves. Not only should we be first to market, but we should be the only ones in that market, in my opinion. In terms of the international market, there's opportunities there as well. But again, it requires access, and it also requires the capital that we tend not to have access to. So you need network access and you need capital access to play on the big stage. And we're not going to get there until we start making the sacrifices to be able to pool our resources to get there. Okay, or unless we have a fairy godmother who gives us a contract that allows us to be able to to breach that barrier and make something of ourselves. And unfortunately, we have a lot of that in the country as well. And so the small guy never gets that opportunity because the big guy already locked it down. But there is too much opportunity, Appy, for us not to be strategic as a country to ensure that we achieve those opportunities. We can't just let the invisible hand work. We have to, if you look at China and Singapore and the other Asian and Arab countries, they are very deliberate in ensuring that they push and finance their people to take the opportunities that exist. They don't leave it to chance. They don't wait for somebody to come in and take the opportunity away and give their people and give their people the jobs. They push their people to be the leaders, to be the entrepreneurs, to be the persons that are backed by their agencies to engage in that particular industry, whatever it might be. You go to China to look for a supplier, and you'll find that a supplier is domiciled in a region where every potential supplier that supplier need exists around them. They're very strategic in what they do, and we're very haphazard in what we do. We wait for somebody to show up with an idea, and then we review that idea, determine whether or not it's a good idea or not, and then we approve it. And so we end up with ideas like the shipyard, where it was a good idea, it's a great idea, but it's standing there by itself, and it needs more than itself to be successful. So what are we doing about making the rest of the ecosystem around it available to it so it could be successful, so we could be successful?
Right.
That requires strategic activity, not complacency.
And as we say on the show, intentional thought. Right?
Okay.
Action.
Yes, I agree.
Right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
And with that, I always say that we need to make our coastal lands not saleable to foreign persons. So in Aruba, they leased their land for 99 years. And so this piggybacking on the same train of thought that you just said, if we lease those coastal things and not just sell them off, then we'll be getting revenue forever. They will be making their money and taking whatever money they want, but we'll get benefit from it. So it doesn't just stick out and we lose that asset for life and so forth. And I also say for foreign direct investment that every foreign direct investment of a significant size should have a 60% IPO. And so we know the Bahamas right now don't have the capacity to fill every foreign investment for 60% of the IPO. So the investors still will have the majority ownership and they can maintain management control. But I'm thinking all of these things are things that where we could leverage the volume that is out there that we don't have in-house. We have nice assets, but we need to be able to piggyback it with the volume in order to maximize the benefit.
Yeah, but you also need to be realistic about what you're investing in. I don't want to come back to the shipyard, but it's a good example of a bad example. We don't need to have 60% of a $600 million project. But we need to have 100% of all of the support agencies, all of the support entities that feed that $600 million project. And they may themselves add up to $600 million, but they're going to be distributed over a wide array of investors as opposed to all of those investors having all of their money in that one pot called the shipyard. When you're an investor, investment isn't just one-sided. You
No,
don't
I
just
know.
get dividends. You also got to fund the establishment when it's time to do that.
Yeah. But this was the idea was to get the economy the investment economy, local domestic investment economy moving, so we could find ways of capitalizing them up front. So, but it's a whole design process that we'll have to go through for all of that, right? And consider all these different things. So, considering natural resources, that we talked about some of them already, right? If leading businesses align strategically for 5 years, what could Grand Bahama build that no single firm could accomplish alone? And this is our people. We're not just talking about foreign persons.
So Grand Bahama is pretty unique in the archipelago. It's probably the only island in the archipelago that has stellar eco-sensitive land in the east.
Okay.
A major city in the middle, and the heritage of West Grand Bahama. In other words, a throughout island in the west. And there's lots of opportunities for developing very targeted tourism in each of those three jurisdictions, if you wish. We've been very delinquent in developing ecotourism in East Grand Bahama. We should be known for that globally because the assets there are phenomenal. We should have heritage tourism in the West that is demonstrating and speaking to all of the various eras of the U.S. Development that West End supported throughout its history. We've been involved in every kind of illicit logistics in West Grand Bahama through the history of the development of the United States, whether it was involved in the Confederate War, Prohibition, the drug era, whatever the hell it might be. Grand Bahama West Grand Bahama has a huge history in that regard, and we should be telling that story in a productive way, not in a deconstructive way, but in a constructive way. And then, of course, Central Grand Bahama off Port Lucaya has the opportunity to be big in the MICE tourist industry and have lots of conventions and maritime tourism as well, boating and what have you. Those are all industries that Bahamians should be dominating on Grand Bahama. We shouldn't be sitting here talking about needing to have a Concord Wilshire, as great as they may turn out to be, having to buy the Grand Lucayan and create a true destination resort activity on that site. We should be able to do that. And there's no reason why we can't do that if we put our heads together and make it happen. What we can't be doing is creating more bedrooms. Nobody's go to a bedroom. People got to get beyond that. They go to activities, and we have to create activities. We are great at creating activities when we put our mind to it. We create some of the greatest parties there is in the world, but we don't do it for a living. And we have to start thinking about how to be intentional about attracting people here to do stuff. there's lots of opportunity for that. Then there is going to be all of the opportunities around the maritime logistics that we talked about earlier. We may not be the anchor for those kinds of investments, but we definitely can be the support for those kinds of investments, and the support could be as big as the anchor. There's lots of stuff that need to happen, especially considering today that most entities want to outsource everything that they need to run their business. They don't want to have it within their business. They want it outsourced. They want to be able to tool up and tool down when necessary, and so they don't want to. I had a boss who used to say, "Costs walk in on two legs and walk out on two legs." Employees are expensive costs to any business, and so major business doesn't like to. They want to be able to rent employees. They want to be able to rent the skills that they need. They want to be able to rent the supplies from somebody else. They don't want the inventory. At Pharmachem, we had $10 million worth of inventory of parts because we had all specialized equipment and nobody else was going to have those parts. So we have to have $10 million worth of parts. Nobody wants to do that. They would much prefer to invest that $10 million in productive work than to invest that in supplies that are sitting in a warehouse growing mold. So there's all kinds of opportunities if we focus. Okay. There's the digital space. If you talk to when I talk digital space, my mind always goes back to C. Allen because he just eat, sleep, and drink that. If we were to cut him loose with a couple of $100 million, I'm sure that we would not know the Grand Bahama that he could create if we cut him loose. But we don't do that. Okay, we're not. That's not our mindset. Our mindset is not to fund the people with the ideas and the know-how to make things happen. We have to get to that stage in life. There's lots of opportunities for things like providing housing for digital nomads, for people who can work from Grand Bahama but not work in Grand Bahama. There are people all over the world who want a safe haven to work from that's not going to tax them to death, that is going to provide them with the kind of lifestyle that they want. You could imagine what the Grand Bahama could look like with just high-rise condominiums everywhere.
That
filled
was
with
fundamentally what I had in the digital wonderland. That was the foundation of it.
Yeah. And we're at a position where we're able to provide the digital support that they need, infrastructure that they need to be able to work successfully from here. We have stable power. We have two digital networks, at least two digital networks, and now with
space,
Starlink and the like out there. There's even more networks available to us, and we have the space. And what people don't understand about our space is they may say, yeah, but we don't want to sell our space to foreigners. Our space is already owned by foreigners. We don't own the space. Somebody else already owns it. It's just a matter of whether it's being utilized productively or not. And we have to put that space to use so that it's not sitting there growing weeds and nobody's benefiting from it. And in order to be able to do that, we collectively central and local, need to come to grips with the fact that we need to put that space to work. And it doesn't matter who owns it at this stage. It matters whether or not they're being put to productive use.
Yeah, meaningful use. They can
Yeah,
provide revenue back into the economy, etc.
exactly.
Right.
Creating a domestic market to which our people can take advantage.
Yeah. So, folks, you're watching Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles, and we're here with Dillon Knowles, and he is the president of the the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce. You know, we're talking about a lot of goodies here, so we invited you to ask your questions, drop it in the chat, hit the like button, share, let all your friends know around the world, whatever you are comfortable with. But we hope you're enjoying the show and learning a lot with this Under the Tree conversation. So, Dillon Nosey, I can keep you here for another hour.
No boy.
Not really. Couple more questions for you. Are we fully leveraging Bahamian talent, or are we still operating with narrow circles of familiarity and comfort?
I guess that depends upon what you consider to be talent. We have a lot of natural talent, but we don't have a lot of certified skills. So if you're talking about artistic talent, for example, which is heavily needed in the tourist space, we have a lot of that, and we're probably not utilizing that
But
as
is
well.
that only needed in the tourist space? Or we need
I'm talking about artistic talent.
Yeah, but even the artistic people, right? They don't have to just be tourist space.
Well,
That could
we
be an
don't
economy
have.
by itself.
Yeah, but you need again, you need a critical mass
Yeah, true.
to tap into that, or for those people to tap into.
Remember my design of the digital wonderland for Grand Bahama would have been which I we had discussions with Monty Pratt on, God bless the dead. But that was the leverage, using digital to leverage our orange and blue economies in the most part.
Yeah. So you know, we have technical talent, not to the level that could be game changing, but to the level that if they applied themselves outside the domestic market, they could start making a significant impact by bringing in foreign revenue. But we tend not to see ourselves as engaging outside the jurisdiction of the Bahamas. I don't know why that is. That's a challenge that we have to overcome. We need to be, again, more intentional with using foreign affairs people, for example, to help to garner those kinds of linkages. We had a situation the other day where we had a chamber member who wanted to get access to a foreign country, and we put them in touch with the Bahamian representative in that country, and the Bahamian representative in that country said they won't send there to work for private enterprises in the Bahamas. They send there to work for the government. And I'm sitting there going, seriously? You know, the taxpayers are the ones who paying for you to be there.
Yeah.
And if we're not intentional like that, then dog eat our lunch, because I could guarantee you that everybody else is intentional like that.
Yeah, they just didn't have the right training, or they missed their class. That's all I could say with that, right?
Question is, you know, how prevalent is that? Okay, so you know, we there's opportunities there, and then the next part of your question about the talent is Grand Bahama, again, is different in that the talent that we need are really technical in nature. And because we're dealing with international companies and international customers need to be certified in nature. It can't just be that you went to a welding course and you've been welding for the last 20 years, so you are a welder. These companies need to have certifications that allow them to stay insured, that allow their customers to continue to maintain their insurance and their certifications and so on and so forth. And we don't do a very good job of facilitating that. Part of it is the Bahamian people's fault, where we do have entry levels for that, like BTVI and what have you. We don't take advantage of it. BTI is always crying for students, and they essentially pay the whole. The curriculum is generally mostly free, so there's no real excuse for us not getting at least that level, and that's the starting point for going to the next levels.
Right.
So if we don't move, if we don't be disciplined to go and do those kinds of things, we're not going to ever get there. My son wanted to do a welding course the other day at a private institution, and the course got canceled because they didn't have enough people. They didn't have enough students to make it worthwhile. I mean, that's disappointing, right?
Right.
Considering the amount of resources needed in the industrial sector on Grand Bahama.
Right, and and also we have a lot of people doing these certification classes and stuff like that, and then they don't have the jobs available to them, so they need to either pick up and get certified and then come over there, or we need to move the training over there in volume, so that because you all have the capacity to hire them, and these guys doing a lot of different things for certification, and that's something that this government has done, which I think is a good thing. But like you say, the whole ecosystem have to work together. You can't just be part of it working well and another part not.
Yeah.
So how do we turn this Bahamian talent from employees into co-creators of the economic value? I mean,
So we
being consumers, and we don't really.
so we need more. We need more people supporting organizations like the Chamber, who are out there trying to help not just businesses, but also employees and potential employees. We, for instance, on Grand Bahama, we partnered with the National Training Agency, who provides essentially free training for upskilling. Their focus is individuals who they consider to be unemployable because they don't have even the rudimentary soft skills to be able to hold down a job. Right. And so, we've partnered with them. We've partnered with SPDC to be able to reach potential entrepreneurs who need support both financially and administratively to get themselves organized. We need a lot more of an SPDC than we have, though. We brag about the things that the SPDC does, but it's really a drop in the bucket compared to what the need is in the Bahamas in terms of turning employees into co-creators. They would come up with a program where this quarter they're providing funds in this particular sector. One point it was supporting people to create Airbnbs. to turn their spaces into Airbnbs. In another sector, and another time it might be providing people in the fishing arena. But we don't need to be doing these things in sequence. We need to be doing these things in parallel. We need to be blitzing the community with funds and funding and training and mentorship and support to be able to move from being employees to being the entrepreneur, the investor, the employer. Even when they start out as being self-employed, it is generally going to lead to being the employer at some point in time if we support them adequately for them to grow. And so, those are the kinds of things that we at the Chamber have been trying to do over the last year, is to help the small businesses and the potential businesses, people who want to be in business but don't quite know how to get there.
Right.
And we need more of that. The big boys don't really need us. They support us. But what are we going to do for the container port? The container port could walk into OPM anytime they want and have whatever discussion they want. What are we really what value proposition do we have for them specifically, other than help them to get the message across about what their support needs are from the community and other businesses. But it's the small businesses and the medium-sized businesses where we really focus our efforts to try and help and also try to help to keep the regulatory environment such that it's an encouragement rather than a discouragement, because it could very readily and very easily become that. Ease of doing business is lacking. If it takes 6 months to open a bank account, how does somebody who has $10,000 to spend to start a business spend 6 months trying to get a bank account to put the $10,000 in so they can start their business? I mean, what are they doing in the meantime? Just burning money unproductively. So there's lots of stuff that we need to do across the archipelago, across the industries, all the support industries, to be able to facilitate people moving from employees to co-creators.
Yeah, and we need to weed out some of these blockers who only try and not to allow these things that we're talking about to come to fruition, so that they could then cause the ideas to shrink and fall apart, and then they reinvent it in something else. And as we talk about reinventing, you've reinvented yourself multiple times. And we talked about a little bit of it in the intro, as to many types of businesses and philanthropy and whatever and stuff that you've done. But what must Grand Bahama reinvent about itself, particularly its economic identity? For it to be prosperous, I should have said, yeah.
So, Grand Bahama's tourism industry was based almost solely, 190% on gaming back in the day. And I know people talked about it died because of the hurricanes and whatever, but I don't buy that theory. Grand Bahama's tourism industry died because Florida opened gaming at Hard Rock, and all of those junket flights and people who needed someplace on the East Coast to go to get their fix no longer came to Grand Bahama. It's just the only place where we built the major resort in the middle of the island, because the major resort was focused on gaming and all of the other adult activities that went along with that, golf during the day, shopping bazaar International Bazaar next to it and what have you. So when we lost gaming, we lost tourism, and we haven't pivoted. We must pivot. We talked about all of the opportunities to pivot earlier on in the show, but we haven't actually done it. In fact, we're to the point where the cruise lines have decided, because we're not doing it, they're going to do it themselves. So we're talking about Carnival doing its own thing. We're talking about MSC engaging on building its own cruise port in Freeport Harbor. And we're talking about potentially, the latest I heard was Concord Wilshire is going to build 2 beach resorts for MSC and Disney on their property. Again, this is somebody else doing it because we haven't done it. And there's no reason why we couldn't do it and entice them to come to our resort rather than them doing it and us sitting on the outside complaining about not having access to it. So, there's all of these kinds of opportunities that we have to come together as one to be able to produce and create. And we're not going to do that as long as we continue to believe that we're all individuals who need to do our own thing. Mm-hmm. When you look at the energy space in the Bahamas today, one group of people came together and have cornered that entire market. And that's the way it has to be done. You can't do it on your own. You need to have the resources, both capital and intellectual resources, to pull off big things. But that's not our forte. Our forte is you open your shoe store and you're doing well. I can open my shoe store half a block from you and take half of your customers, and then both of us can do bad. That we got to overcome that. Man. We have to overcome that. When do we vertically integrate? You talked earlier about natural resources. I listen all the time to people talk about the value of aragonite. Mm-hmm. Aragonite in the ground don't have no value. So what are you going to do about taking it out of the ground? And then what are you going to do about transporting it? And then what are you going to do about refining it? And then what are you going to do about packaging it? And then what are you going to do about marketing it? And how are you going to break into that market? All of those things are the things that you have to do if you want to have that value. Otherwise, what you have is a resource in the ground that,
and so that's
you can't benefit from.
I believe that there's certain of our resources that we can harvest, for lack of a better word.
Harvest is the right word.
In the Bahamas, and we could be the beneficiaries of it, right?
It's not just harvesting, though. If you don't process it, then
no. But that's what I call it part of harvesting. Harvesting is when you get it to the point where it could be commercially viable.
And that requires big money and big expertise, and we need to put our heads together to do that.
I agree. Listen, I talking about $100 billion economy, and now I'm up to $1 trillion economy. By the time as I finish by independence, I probably can be up to $100 trillion economy. Because the more I talk to people who do some of these things, it's just mind-boggling what we have to offer that we aren't tapping into. There might be reasons why we don't tap into it, but we gotta knock those barriers down so there's too much here for us not to benefit from it.
Well, our leadership is always focused on incremental. We're too busy. We're too busy casting off the lines and pulling up the buoys and checking the fuel to be actually plotting the course. And we need to plot the course. We're not doing that. We haven't done that. We need to do that.
Yeah. cool. Okay. So we reinvented yourself, and the Grand Bahama can do it. We can do it, and we could do the same. So, from what I
That
gather from
itself
what you said,
is not that hard.
what's that?
Reinventing yourself is not that hard. Business is all about providing a good or a service that somebody else wants to pay for
Right.
and doing it efficiently
Mm-hmm.
and at the right quality. Okay. It's that, yes, there's lots of details behind that, but that's the simple, high level perspective of business.
Right.
And so if you have that mindset, it's not a matter of what product or service you're providing. It's a matter of, is there a market for the product or service
Right.
that you're providing? You need to do your market research. You need to understand what people want. Too many people say, I want to sell shoes. But if nobody want to buy shoes, why you want to sell shoes?
No, they don't want to buy shoes from here. They want
You
to buy
know?
Jordans. You see them people fighting for the Jordans, the new Jordan drop.
But you understand my point.
I understand. This is my point.
My point is you don't go into business to sell what you want to sell. You go into business to sell what people want to buy.
Then this
And
is
if
my
you
point.
do that, you're going to reinvent yourself every time the market shifts.
I agree, and that's what I'm saying. And what the people want to buy is stuff like the Jordans. So you need to find out what the people want to buy and go into that, right?
Yeah,
And then
don't go to 7th Street to buy them, to sell them to the people. Go to the factory.
Yeah. All right, so it's getting late, so let me know what else can do. So the bold question: what bold decisions are business leaders avoiding? Not because it's not impossible, but because it's uncomfortable. What do they need to do to get this ball momentum rolling?
Take risk.
Take the risk?
Take the risk. It's a matter of, we shy away from things because we can't see ourselves at that level of risk. We don't see ourselves borrowing $1 million because we never had $1 million. We don't see that, yes, you can take the risk on $1 million, but you're going to protect yourself so that you don't lose everything should you lose the $1 million. But you can't get anywhere if you don't want to take that risk. You're going to continue to play in the shallow end of the pool because you don't want to dive off the diving board in the deep end. You got to get in the deep end. Okay? You got to think big. You got to do what is going to be game changing, not just the stuff that is going to allow you to pay the light bill.
Yeah. So, and that's why I like sports so much, because you can't steal second base with your foot on first base, planted on first base, right? So you have to learn these different things. That don't mean you take stupid risks, but you got to take risks that
you have to take calculated risks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Okay, and then of the new built environment. Now, we didn't touch on new built environment too much, but we just posted real quickly. You can see that, right? So they're the pillars.
I can see it, but I can't read it.
But you take your glasses off. That's what I used to have to do.
I don't know. The screen that you give me is a little quarter size on my laptop.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, we go. So basically, we have the pillars of the sun, sound, sea, people, and digital, and that's not the sun, sound, sea of tourism. That's sun from, and these are all like light industries, and the sun, the solar, the sun, what we could get out of the land, the sea, what we get out of the ocean. And I believe the ocean is the biggest opportunity that we have that we don't touch in. Too. People, we know, resilient people, we praise that left, right, and center. And digital is the new goal that people still, in this 50,000 years later, don't understand how to benefit from that, because your return on your money for a digital investment is 1,000 times faster than what it is for the traditional stuff. And the government's starting to realize that, but we need more private sector to realize that, because then they could make themselves even more efficient to use their capital and make money to all.
Isn't it is for naught if they don't facilitate the public being able to engage in it. Talking about it isn't sufficient.
Fair enough. So that's a business for somebody then to figure out how to engage them.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So,
So which would you say would be the clearest line of sight for private sectors to action and meaningful rewards from any of these pillars?
So the question is, how do we educate the people on the opportunities? Right? We had a seminar, town hall meeting, I guess is a better word, the other day with the central bank, where they were rolling out digital pay.
Okay.
Right? And it was well attended, and people learned a lot that they had no clue about, and they began to understand that if they don't get on board, they can get left, because there ain't gonna be no hard currency available, no cash for them to be able to use. So when it is convenient to us, we have the ability to reach the public, to help them to understand why they need to engage in something that we as the government want to do strategically. But we don't do that in the opportunity space. We only do it when it benefits the government to do it. We don't do it to benefit the people.
Right.
And we need, if the government's talking digital, it needs to reach out to the people about digital. The chambers need to reach out. Other entrepreneurs need to figure out that they need to reach out. There needs to be a full court press on it, and not just one or two people on the end who are going to then try to maximize their utilization of it for their own personal gain. Right. It needs to be spread, deliberately spread, intentionally, as you say, spread amongst the masses. We're too creative a people to be struggling.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. So, if the private sector leads intentionally over the next 5 years, what measurable transformation should we expect to see?
So, that all depends upon our desire to let the private sector lead. I know of major projects that take decades to come to fruition. I worked on the thought of Carnival's cruise port 20 years ago in the Port Authority. Roadblocks and barriers that had to be overcome to make that project a reality was phenomenal, and we see it in everything else the Grand Bahama is a smaller version of it, but it's the same thing. We've been talking about that now for 2 administrations. So we have to have a regulatory environment that allows commerce to flourish. We can't try to hold the reins and grow.
Mhm.
We need to release the reins and allow people to flourish, people to come up with ideas and to execute their ideas freely. We need people to be able to reach outside the country and make contacts and partner with and associate themselves with others to be able to pull off big things. We need people outside the country to be able to come in and pull off big things with the proviso that those big things need to be international in scope and not local in scope. There's lots of things that the private sector want to engage in, but we aren't yet ready to let them engage in them because they aren't the right person in our thought process. Either they're a foreigner or they're from the wrong side of the tracks or from the wrong color or the wrong party or whatever the case might be. We're not serious about free enterprise. We want to manage that space. And we have to stop managing that space if we want it to grow.
Cool. So I think you answered that question and answered the next question. So I'll just go on to my good question with that the checker flag. We tend to not take action until the pain of there should be taken action. And the bottom line is we tend to not take action until the pain of staying in our comfort zones significantly outweighs the pain to change. So what action signals that we've crossed that threshold? Because if we don't...
That's human nature. You see that everywhere you go. People don't take action until they're forced to. And sometimes you just got to force them to. You like to talk about sports, and I say all the time, Bahamians have all the natural talent in the world, but we don't have the discipline because we have it too easy. And we may complain about life in the Bahamas, but life in the Bahamas is a cakewalk compared to the vast majority of the people in the world. When you start talking about competing against people from the Caribbean who sports is their only way out, right? What they are prepared to do to get out, we're not prepared to do because that ain't comfortable. We won't go to the party. We won't watch TV. All of the comfort things, all the entertainment things are the reasons why we don't have the kind of success that we ought to have with the talent that we have. And that is not just in the sports arena. That permeates almost every aspect of life for us as a nation. We're extremely comfortable. Everybody's got an iPhone. Everybody got a pair of Jordans. We may only make $300 a week, but we got an iPhone.
Yeah. And a Honda.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so as long as we're comfortable, we're not going to do anything different. And that's a travesty.
Yeah.
We're waiting for the Bahamas to fall apart for us to then start to be innovative.
But, I always tell people it's because we focus so much on education. We think education is academics, but education to me is academics, experiences, and exposure. And we're not exposing people to things so they don't see how they can be situated in a different way. You talk about borrowing the $100 million and stuff like that. They won't take the risk because they can't fathom that kind of money. But at one point in time, we had people who were rainmakers, and the minute they got to the executive level, they became puppets in the corner because they never dreamed that they could get to the executive level when they started Bataco. And so their whole personality fell apart when they got to become an executive because they felt that there was nothing else for them to accomplish. They never dreamed that what they should be doing when they get to executive level was dreaming or planning as to what they could accomplish with that extra level of authority and power, etc.
But there's also the risk factor.
Yeah.
When you're an employee, there's very little risk. When you're the top dog, the whole organization either succeeds or fails based on your decisions.
Yeah, but that part wasn't scaring people in Bataco. People in Bataco had the strongest union in this country. At the time, they was very radical and so forth. So none of that part was a problem. The issue was pure. They never dreamed that they can get there. So when they got there, they just sat. A lot of them. I'm not saying everybody, but I'm just saying that to say that we have to inspire people to be able to do more. They won't do it, a lot of it, by themselves, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So the big question I ask all of my guests, at least I try to ask all of them. Sometimes I forget, my head getting a little old. But for the young Bahamians watching tonight, what is one concrete opportunity you would encourage them to explore if they want to help build the new built environment?
So I don't give people any concrete opportunity. I give people a process. And that process is simply this. God gives you ideas almost every single day. Every time you fix your mouth to complain about something, not being good enough or not being available or whatever the reason is that you're complaining about it, that's God giving you an idea for a business.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you complaining about it, chances are other people complaining about it. Mm-hmm. And if other people complaining about it, there's a market for you to solve that problem for you and the other people. We just have to start being, again, intentional about our day and not just brushing off our day as if it don't matter. The things that you see, the things that you do, the things that surprise you, the things that frustrate you are all opportunities that you need to think about engaging in a very productive way.
And that's something to think about. You really should write that one down. If not, clip that part of the video and keep it. Play it back over and over and over. So that's some wise, as they say, wise. Or the Bluetooth people say, wise people. Advice. So one, Dillon F. Knowles, thank you kindly. You spent an additional 30 minutes, so I guess I don't have to pay you the consultant fee of $250 to $300 more for the hour. So We thank you kindly. You drop a lot of nuggets on the table. We hope people will put it in context and learn from it. And we hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely. For me, it's all about trying to help to empower people to move forward successfully. If we don't do so, we don't have a successful country. If we don't have a successful country, we don't have a successful environment for our kids growing up. And in my case, I now got 2 granddaughters who I have to worry about providing a stable, safe, and productive environment for. So I do what I can with who I can, when I can, where I can.
That's great. Awesome. So as we said, we want you to continue to be prosperous, grow in strength, and continue to share that love and wealth. So we'll be back in touch with you shortly. But peace out for you. Good. So folks, you've been watching Something to Think About with Dillon Happy Knowles. We thought about Grand Bahama not as a crossroads, but as an inflection point. We thought about opportunity not as something we wait for, but something we intentionally position ourselves to capture. Understanding that the unfinished economic promise of majority rule requires more than memory. It requires movement. Understanding that private sector leadership must be deliberate if we are serious about building the new built environment, sunshine, sea, people, and digital. Tonight, we did not revisit history. We defined responsibility. We demonstrated that commitment to execution can release. Now it's time to be brave, because we cannot steal second base with our foot planted on first base. My name is Dillon Happy Knowles, and you've been taught to be able to see and think about it.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative 242